I don't want to make a video on this because I honestly don't care. Oh no, Fallout 76 is God, Fallout 76, Soldier 76, I don't even remember who's the gay one here, although if you still consider gay as an insult, I guess you might understand the confusion. The recent news that happened with Soldier 76 being revealed as gay is one of the things that a lot of people in my social media sphere talk about, but they mostly talked about how this is a piece of news from Blizzard being done to distract people from the fact that they royally screwed up in a lot of departments. That's actually a more interesting topic to talk about. Let's talk about how Blizzard royally screwed up their company, shall we? We've talked about the failure that was Diablo Immortal, and how incredibly tone-deaf Blizzard was at attempting to release a game in a platform that most of its fan base don't play in. Ever since then, we have a lot of news from Blizzard and also Activision that show nothing but those two companies in a really not so great position. I don't even know where to begin, honestly, so let's start off with the basics. Look at them freaking stocks, guys. I mean, goddamn. Talk about a nosedive. Considering what Blizzard has done with their flagship titles, should you really be surprised with this huge freaking drop? Keep in mind that the Diablo Immortal controversy began at around November, so the investors really looked at the commercial and the backlash and said, nope, ain't taking that risk no more. Don't worry guys, we're not done yet with Activision Blizzard. One of the most prominent developers in Activision, Bungie, just quits Activision, and with that a lot of Destiny fans celebrated and rejoiced in the fact that Bungie can finally make a game that they truly wanted with Destiny instead of being shackled with Activision with their ridiculous microtransactions. I don't really know much on who's really responsible on that, but what I do know is that the Bungie developers were celebrating this exit. I'm wondering how Activision Blizzard is going to perform when one of their big players decided to quit the game. And let's not forget the entire scandal with Ellie, a pro Overwatch player who presents herself as a woman, but it turns out that she's a man. The reason for all of this is because they want to do a social experiment, which is just the best of the best excuse of all time. That's way too much of a rabbit hole that I don't even know where to begin. Glad that PewDiePie covered his story, so if you want to know more details, I'll link to his video right down below. But that's not all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not done. We still have a lot more scandals to cover, and Activision and Blizzard got into quite a lot of scandals. Turns out that recently a law firm is investigating claims on behalf of investors of Activision Blizzard, and the claims concerning of whether or not Activision and certain of its officers and or directors have engaged in securities fraud or other unlawful business practices. That's right, they're being investigated for fraud and other unlawful business practices. But guys, Soldier 76 is gay! I don't know if this is just poor timing on Blizzard's counterpart or if this is a deliberate PR move from Blizzard to make sure that people forget about the many things that are happening in the background. Considering the many blunders that Blizzard has done in the past couple of weeks, I just simply can't see how stating a character is gay is going to get you free brownie points from everyone. Nobody is buying this, Blizzard. Nobody is buying it whatsoever. And let me tell you the sorts of people who don't buy this. The progressives. Yes, even the progressives are not buying this. They're not buying this for totally different reasons, but they're not buying it whatsoever. So let's talk about the reactions, and this is gonna be one of those times where I don't really bash the progressives because for the most part, in this particular scenario, I actually agree with them. And you know what else I agree with? More patrons! Huge thanks Griffin, Mary Noir, and DJ Pedobear for the pledges on Patreon. You guys are fantastic. Before we move on, let's talk about the source material of where this entire controversy is coming from. So how can Soldier 76 be confirmed gay? Well, it's because of this short story called Bastet, not a comic, a short story. It's a freaking fan fiction being made canon. This is one of those times where I say that just because it is canon doesn't mean it's good or that it is correct. This short story proves that creators can just slap whatever fan fiction they could find and say, that's right guys, this is canon. Just goes to show you how lazy Blizzard is in terms of adding narrative content to Overwatch. They're just leaving that job to other people, including the fans even, if it's just a mere short story. But with that being said, the short story itself is actually just fine. It's a one-shot story between Anna and Jack, the real name for Soldier 76, in an attempt to capture or kill a corrupt king in Cairo. I forgot if it's just to capture or to kill, but doesn't matter. The short story does focus on a lot of the characters' backstories and even mentioning a number of characters without revealing their code names at all. The reveal happens when Anna was browsing through old pictures and noticed a picture between Jack and a man named Vincent. Jack said that the relationship didn't work out because he couldn't put anything else above his duties. He also revealed that the man is happily married with someone else. Anna talked about how relationships never worked out for people like them, unconsciously running her thumb over where her wedding ring used to be, but Jack replied that at least Anna and Gabriel, aka Reaper, have families. Oof de freaking oof. Overall, it's a sweet and short bonding story between two characters that I don't really have that much issues on. The reveal of Soldier 76 being gay is well executed and emotionally impactful in my opinion. It's done so well that his homosexuality isn't really the spotlight. The story emphasizes more on the risk of being in the soldier business and how that sort of thing doesn't always produce a good, healthy, normal life. The lover in question could be a woman, and it wouldn't make any difference because it doesn't really matter. What matters is how Jack sacrificing his normal life for his duties affects him emotionally. It just so happened that the lover in question is male. Thanks to Soldier 76's career, relationships almost always never work. So even if he is confirmed to be gay, don't expect him to do the bonking anytime soon. But the short story itself isn't really the issue here. I think the short story is fine. The issue once again is how Blizzard just doesn't really care to give the stories of these characters in a more prominent spotlight in the game. The gay reveal is just one of the many issues that Overwatch's narrative suffers from. Bastet isn't the only official short story that Overwatch has. Overwatch has a lot of side stories out there that are always stuck in either the comics realms or the short story realms like this. It never goes out into a more mainstream scope, and it's the sort of thing that only the most enthusiastic Overwatch fans would digest. And maybe it is supposed to be just for the enthusiasts, but considering how the reveal was only done to a side story merely for enthusiasts and not for the average Overwatch players, the impact of the reveal is severely lessened. The only reason why it's big is because some of the die-hard Overwatch fans who read the side stories just so happen to be game journalists. The average Overwatch players or gamers in general only know about the reveal thanks to these journalists reporting on them, rather than them reading the side stories directly. Since the average gamers don't really care about the story of Overwatch, they don't really care if the characters are gay. The average Overwatch players care more about the gameplay, and I think everyone here cares more about the gameplay. Despite Blizzard's attempts to fill in the void that is Overwatch's story and lore, it was always the fan content and the fanon that rises above the canon. So if Blizzard really wants people to take Overwatch's story seriously, they themselves need to take it seriously, instead of just dropping them in side stories merely for enthusiasts. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the reveal in terms of the impact of the game's narrative as a whole. So let's talk about this article from Game Revolution, who talks about how Blizzard is essentially the JK Rowling of games after Soldier 76's LGBTQ reveal. How is Blizzard the JK Rowling of games? Well, it's because they revealed the character's sexual orientation in a medium that is not really that popular. So Dumbledore's sexual orientation reveal is merely revealed because JK Rowling talked about it once during an interview instead of putting it in the actual canon of the film or the books. Essentially, they're complaining that while these two characters are gay, they're not obviously gay to the public. Their orientation is not immediately obvious unless you see the side stories that are not part of the main meat. Soldier 76's reveal was from a short story instead of the actual game, and Dumbledore's reveal is because JK Rowling said it once during an interview. So to the mainstream audiences who don't really pay attention to those two things, and they have all the reasons not to, they don't really know their sexuality, and that it's not good for the progressives because they're the sorts of people who want you to know about it. Remember that I said that I mostly agree with them, and this is definitely the one part that I disagreed with. Nothing is more annoying than someone shoving their sexuality down your throat. But to be fair, they do highlight one of the key problems of Overwatch that has been plaguing their game for a while now. Overwatch is a hero shooter, and there's not a lot of story content in the game. Most of the story content are in the side comics or the short stories revolving around the game. So considering how incredibly insubstantial the story content of Overwatch is, the reveal of Soldier 76 being gay is about as substantial as the reveal that the straight line block from Tetris is gay. The characters coming from a game where the story and character relationships don't really matter in the game. What matters the most is the gameplay and the multiplayer and how much fun that you'll have when you're playing the game. Overwatch is a game whose story content and character content are constantly being filled by their fans, and I do love a lot of these fan-made content, don't get me wrong on that. So when Blizzard contributes into the storyline through something that the fans can easily make themselves, it doesn't feel impactful. It's a freaking short story, for God's sake. Anyone can make a short story and say that these characters are gay because it's my personal canon. No disrespect to the actual short story, but absolute disrespect towards the way Blizzard just took that short story and say, this is canon. It just screams utter laziness in their part. So while I disagree about the idea of shoving the gay to everyone, I do agree that the reveal as a whole feels weak and insubstantial, almost as if it was done as a PR stunt to make people forget about the many horrendous things that the company did, like the horrendous mistreatment of one of their employees. Overwatch's story doesn't really matter in the game. The stories of the characters don't really matter in the game. The game doesn't treat both of those things to matter in the game. So why should Soldier 76 being gay really matter? I frankly frankly feel more invested in the story of how a straight block can turn sideways. But that's not the only complaints from the community. Let's talk about this article from Screen Rant. Screen Rant complained about how Soldier 76 being gay isn't really enough, and I gotta say, the writer does have some solid points. The writer comes in to pull off the big guns and state the obvious problem here. The short story itself isn't a problem. The story is fine and the reveal is pretty bittersweet. There is, however, a wider context on the overall issue that's being talked about at hand. Blizzard handled the reveal as a secondary rather than something more primary. Yes, that is correct, and it's correct to not just this story but other side stories as well. We're on the same page so far, go on writer. The writer then talked about how the small story is only going to reach a small group of Overwatch enthusiasts and that the average Overwatch players aren't going to be exposed with the story. Great, another point in which we're on the same page. Please continue. The writer then said that even the reveal has a lot of wiggle room, and the reason is that the actual reveal part doesn't explicitly said that Jack is gay or that he's in a relationship. It only takes the writer for the short story to go to Twitter to finally confirm that yes, Jack is indeed gay. While this point is true, I for one appreciate how the short story keeps it subtle. And by subtle, I mean Jack didn't explicitly go to your face and say, "I'm gay guys, I am gay." It's only when Anna found a photo of him with his former lover when she asked him about his relationship. The way he describes it, it is strongly hinted that they were in a relationship rather than him explicitly saying that they are. Actually, let's talk about this scene for a bit because this scene manages to convey that a person is gay without the needs of it being annoyingly blatant. The writer recognizes the power of showing rather than telling and uses this scene as a way to convey backstory and motivations rather than just explicitly saying, "Hey, Jack is gay now guys." The writer has Jack to talk about how he's unable to gain happiness with Vincent thanks to his career, which is not only emotionally more impactful, but it makes sense within the context of the story. They were reminiscing old times and Anna brought up one of those old times. The writer has all the opportunity to say, "Guys, Jack is gay guys, look at him, Jack is gay." But instead the writer uses this opportunity to expand on Jack's backstory and character motivation. It just so happens that one of his character motivations involve a former male lover. The fact that he's gay is so insignificant in that scene, it could have been replaced with a woman. That scene doesn't signify that he's gay, that scene signifies that his job prevents him to get a happier life with a lover, which is why he has to make sacrifices to his love towards his former lover, and that former lover just so happened to be a guy. So the writer confirming that they're gay on Twitter is a huge cop-out, and I honestly don't blame him. If we put that tweet aside, there's only one person in this entire thing going, "Hey guys, Soldier 76 is gay, isn't that amazing?" And that is Blizzard. Do you seriously think that this is going to distract us from all of these oopsies that you did, Blizzard? Blizzard just doesn't care in putting all of these backstories within the game. This entire thing isn't really the fault of the writer. The writer does his best to make the reveal as subtle as possible. This is all Blizzard for not caring enough and using this merely as a way to distract people from the real issues. So in conclusion, as I dive in further and further into Overwatch's story and narrative, I find a hell of a lot more issues with Overwatch and Blizzard. Even when we remove Blizzard and Activision's current controversies, which there are tons of them and some still going to this day, Overwatch still has a fundamental problem in its story and narrative, which makes the many reveals of their characters not that impactful. This is an issue that has been plaguing Overwatch for years now, and I've talked about this many times in the past, but this reveal feels like a weapon that Blizzard uses to escape the PR hell that their company stumbled into. It's pretty interesting how Blizzard managed to piss off both the progressives and the gamers. They pissed off gamers for ruining a beloved franchise, and they pissed off the progressives for making the gay reveal to be insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and using the reveal just as a way to cover their faces. There's nothing wrong with the reveal itself. I think the short story does the reveal pretty damn well without being too obvious. What is wrong is Blizzard for treating this reveal as if it's the most significant thing ever, when they themselves are not treating their side stories, or stories in general, to be significant in the game. What is wrong is Blizzard for pretty much the rest of the scandal that they're involved in. Blizzard needs to take the Overwatch story seriously, include these stories as a single player campaign mode or something, make the average players to actually care about the story and characters, otherwise it won't save you from this PR nightmare. Actually, even if the character stories do matter in the game, and even if the average gamers care about the Overwatch story, I don't think pulling the gay card is going to save you from that horrendously plummeting stock. You just pissed off the progressive aggressive, Blizzard, and unfortunately, you pissed them off on something that I cannot defend you from. A great question to ask to you guys is, how the hell can Activision Blizzard be able to get out of this PR nightmare? I have one solution, Blizzard. Make all Overwatch SFM canon.